So another panel at PaizoCon 2023, and this time we're doing the Secrets of Golarion. This one is going to preview Lost Omens material, and there is so much art for this one. Now, some of the pronunciations I'm going to try my best on, but please don't give me too hard a time at it, because some of them are going to be a little bit hard. But my name is Don. I'm trying to be the Sly Strategist, and let's go ahead and get into it. So we started out this panel with Luis Loza, Eleanor Farron, and John Compton. And we kind of started out with something that we already know a little bit about because it's been out for about a month, but they mentioned Firebrands. So Lost Omen Firebrands, it is already out. It is about the rebels and rebellion and the relationships of the factions, what the rule options as a member are, the equipment that you can get, the archetypes, the feats. Like the archetypes that they specifically brought up were like the dandy and the vigilante. They are already out and ready to roll. But the big thing we want to talk about is next month, the Highhelm and Sky King's Tomb are going to start coming out. So Highhelm is pretty much all about the cultural center for the dwarves and trying to bring a little bit more in order to flesh out some of the details of dwarven culture and a big look at the Five Kings Mountain region and revitalize and revisit what makes dwarves tick. So we're going to go ahead and show some of this art here, but we had some that we saw yesterday, as well as new ones, such as this little mining scene that they have to kind of show you what the dwarves would be doing in their off time, as well as a new picture of High King Tangent, who is the unifier of the dwarves. People generally tend to look at him in reverence and how he brought all the people together, started the 12 clans, the different types of industries, which we're going to get to in a second, so I don't want to go too much into that. But Highhelm is a big place. It's 4 layers, as we learned yesterday during the keynote. King's Crown, King's Heart, as well as Stone Breach, which is kind of like the art, trade, and innovation center. And then outside of that is the Depths, which are tunnels and caves which lead into the Darklands. It kind of highlights the image that we have here. It highlights the verticality and the connectedness of them all and how it is part of the greater whole of the Dwarven Kingdom and the Dwarven great cities. Now, one of the things that they brought up, and I believe John was the one who brought this up, is that dwarves are all about community. And so this would be how all the communities interact between the different layers and the colorful flavor that you can bring with doing it. Then we have here an image of the clan symbols. The High King created the clans to unite the people by creating this federation of clans that is a support network. But it was highlighted that you can jump between clans. Each one of the clan is going to have its own traditional industry and the things that it likes to do. But it is these clans that inform an identity, not necessarily define what a character can do if they are in a clan, for a little bit of flexibility and so that you can do more with your character. Then we have some various pictures of the different inhabitants and types of dwarves that you're going to find. It isn't all males and females have beards and it's kind of hard to tell them apart and all this other kind of stuff. No, there's a lot more detail and a lot more things you can go into. And this as well shows some of the NPCs that are not of dwarven ancestry that live within the city. And the whole intent of this is to draw you into the Sky King's Tomb. Highhelm is meant to be a hub for a campaign, and it is very involved in the High King's Tomb. There are plenty of opportunities to explore it. It's a 3-part adventure. The first adventure takes place almost entirely within Highhelm, and you will return often. You do eventually delve deeper and go to darker and more dangerous adventures in the Darklands, but you will always come back. This is kind of the hub for that particular Sky King's Tomb adventure path. Other ancestries can live here. And then we kind of went on I don't even want to say it's a tangent because it wasn't a tangent, but it was talking about domestication of livestock that the dwarves do because they live underground. So they don't have fields and grass and sunlight and water sources, open lakes and things like that. So they talked about how they domesticated a type of grub called a grindle grub in Highhelm. It's underground livestock for dwarves. What do dwarves eat? Well, they can eat very large domesticated grubs and have grub steaks. They're a soft and tender food item that dwarves are happy to turn into steaks. They talked about a particular NPC, Grindle Grub Rancher, that is very, very happy with her Grindel grubs, and she treats them like puppies. And then one of the things they brought up is if you have a society that is built into the side of the mountain, well, how do you deal with the sewer system and how do you deal with those type of things in a siege environment? In that case, the Grindel grubs can be used to kind of take care of that waste as well as providing a food source. So sieges are harder to do. They're very functional. Now, this will be coming out next month. It's going to include new heritages, new animal companions, new items, new magic items, new spells, and they mentioned Grindel grub steaks. So here I'm going to show you a cover of 2 books. This is the Tian Xia Character and World Guide. Now, this was meant to showcase cultural things and kind of a love letter to these cultures, and they want to share this particular world with Golarion. And the character guide shows a standard yokai parade, and it shows some playable ancestries on the cover. You'll see ghosts, you'll see Samsarins, you'll see Ghost Kitsune. And on the World Guide, they had a boating festival. It shows people having fun, fantasy ancestries. There's kobolds on one of the boats. There's Nagachi, which to me looks like a shark in the middle of the center one. And then there was a Lukisha beating on the drum. This next picture I'm going to bring up, it shows the herds of ducks, and what they would do is they would use ducks as a type of pest control. And so this is someone bringing their ducks into town in order to deal with pests and things along those lines. So kind of interesting. Shows you a little bit more of the flavor of the world. Now, this picture of Alley Bashers is taking place in the city of Goka. Goka has the Golden League, which is a criminal network that operates there. There are smaller gangs that are called Alley Bashers that are being kind of driven out of that particular crime syndicate. So what they've done here with clockwork and magical machinations is they've kind of created a Mortal Kombat for Golarion, which is like a game and you can play it. That's what this picture is showing here. And then in this last picture we have right here, it's a forest in the nation of Chuye, and it is the Chukia forest. Fumiyoshi, the god of undeath and envy, kind of murdered everything in the Chukia forest, and this is a grave yoka, and they lurk in the forest and guard any of the graves that they find there. Then we can start getting into some of the new ancestries that I've brought in. The Samsarins are one of the player ancestries. Their origins are found in a mythical spring that they drank water from, and that allows them to reincarnate over and over and over until they achieve enlightenment or re-enlightenment, and then they turn back into water. They bleed water and not blood. They have their bases in mountainous home regions, and they have an easier time in those particular types of regions than, let's say, a normal human would. Now we'll move on to the Tanuki and their big bellies. They said that multiple times, and the key phrase that they use to describe them is that they are big losers as written. An example of that is Tanuki virtues, one called Tanuki courage, where your courage is your speed is a lot faster, so you can run away more quickly. They have the same shape-shifting features as Kitsune, but they tend to turn into inanimate objects, and specifically tea kettles historically, and their powers come from their big bellies. And now we have the Wyangs. The Wyangs are shadow natives of the Shadow Plains. They came over during Earthfall, and they kind of just stuck around even after it wasn't dark anymore. They are based on some historical, like our historical Indonesian shadow puppets, and their heritages are based on the stories that they share. So it could be hunters or farmers, fishermen, but the example they gave was hunters can use their shadows in combat, so they can manipulate their shadows, or they can manipulate their allies' shadows, and they can bind the target with their shadows in order to help them hunt. That was where we kind of stopped on the ancestries. There's 3 more, and all 3 are brand new. Then we went into the religion and the gods picture. We have Shizune in her dragon form. She has been discussed before in Lost Omens, but this book will focus more on Shizune and Skio, the Prince of the Moon, and how these two have a relationship between each other. Shizune is a dragon, and we see her in her dragon form, and dragons in Tian Xia do pay homage to her. This next picture we have coming up, I'm going to start on the right because that is General Susumu, who is Shizuru's brother, and he is the god of glory and battle. pretty much matching historical samurai. On the left is Daiketsu, the goddess of Kitsune. Now, she does not appear in Kitsune form, nor is she particularly bothered with how she appears. Show up in many forms, but it's not necessarily kind of her big thing, nor is it necessarily always a her, because she can change her gender as well. As well as being the god of Kitsune, she is also the god of agriculture and the arts. She is known as the Lady of Foxes, and she does have fox servants around her, and Kitsune are descendants of these divine fox servants. There is a new god as well. We don't know the name of it, but then we started getting into the monsters of Tian Xia. So in this picture, on the left, we have a Highhelm, which is a fallen celestial that was kicked out not for being bad, but for having the personality of an over-exuberant puppy. And they are agents of heaven still and considered a sign of good fortune. But they do have an appetite for gold or treasure, so that is why they're kind of classified as a monster, because they might come along and eat your treasure. Females do not have a mane. Males have mane. In this particular picture, it's shown with one horn, but there's also some pictures where females have two horns and males have one horn. In the center is the Great Flood, based in Chinese myth. It generally rises out of the sea, and the heads do talk to each other. They might debate and argue with each other on whether they're going to eat you or not, maybe choose not to and move on to the next thing, maybe decide to destroy this city or not, depending on how they have the conversation. If they do decide to eat you, some of the heads might tell you jokes or tell you a story to try and ease the fact that you are being eaten. So the different heads have different personalities and can have conversations and debate. On the right is Yongnol, which is a fallen celestial that eats rich people, misusing their wealth. If they do happen to eat enough rich people, they may be allowed to go back to heaven. And the one in this picture is wearing a mask, but they claim to be dragons. This is going to be out in 2024 for the character and world guide for Tian Xia. Then we went to the Q&A section. So there is a possibility that they'll visit Belkzen in the near future, since orcs have received some significant reframing in the remaster. Orcs are now in the core, so it is definitely something they can follow up on. Tian Xia, they do have Eastern-inspired archetypes from the new continent, feats, archetypes, and heritages. They talked about a new goblin heritage called Nokabe, which is kind of like a Korean goblin, very strongly tied into illusion and fire. One of the questions that came up was, where can we see Sky Islands? They will be in a Dragonbound archipelago in southwestern Arcadia in Stolen Fates, so we will see Sky Islands coming up. Then there was a kind of silly question about curse words in Golarion, analogous to the F word. There are blasphemous utterances all over the place, and they brought up some, but they were more like Desna's tears and things like that. They are regional. There's so many different languages. There isn't really an equivalent to the big F-bomb. Tian Xia Nephilim are based on Chinese celestials. Sure, they will do. One question came up on why adventure paths aren't set in the past. Well, when you set something in the past, it's hard to incorporate that into the present, because what you changed in the past might totally change the circumstances of an adventure path that you've already written as well. So there are chances that you'll see this in books maybe, and possibly in adventures and adventures past that are not canonically tied to the present. So something that is totally irrelevant. And then there was a question about something in Lost Omens Grand Bazaar. Hominy, a rabbit, told everyone that he was Eridan's familiar. And they pretty much came out and said, yep, it's true. Good luck explaining it. That's kind of where they left that off. Now, I hope you enjoyed this summary of the Secrets of Golarion. I would say this one didn't have quite as much information as some of the others did. Not for lack of trying. They gave us a lot. This was so much art, so much character design, so much flavor for what we're going to see in Tian Xia especially, and Highhelm, that really glad I watched it. I hope you like the video, and if you do, feel free to like, subscribe, or hit that notification bell. But whatever you do, I hope you have a great day and happy adventuring. Thanks.